Hey guys, Dave from Dave's Glory Shopworks here, and on this episode we are going to be showing how simple it is to rebuild a Ford C6 transmission. Now I always thought that the Dodge 727 and 904 were the simplest ones on the market, but frankly this guy's just that much easier. So follow along, hopefully I can show you the steps that most of you would need to just be able to accomplish this. We're not talking a shift kit or anything in the valve body, at least not yet anyway. And we are going to be replacing all the clutches and steels. We're going to be cleaning the valve body. We're going to be making sure all the valves move freely, as well as cleaning the case, painting it, going through the specs on the front pump on the transmission to make sure the fluid flow is going to be okay, checking the band, and just basically resealing all of the seals, the clutch packs, you name it, checking our clearances. We're going to try and go through it a little bit fast, so if you guys have any questions at all about things I may or may not have covered, just throw them down in the comments and we'll take it from there. Alright guys, so tools we're going to need, these are pretty basic. Pair of cutters. These are the only real specialty tools so far until we get into pulling the drums apart. These are, I think they're called a duckbill plier. They've got little striations on the end. They're basically an inside snap ring plier for snap rings that don't have the little eyelets for regular snap ring pliers. We need those for some of the snap rings that hold everything together. A 13/16 socket to take the band apart, a couple of extensions, impact gun to speed things up, universal joint, screwdriver, and just some basic sockets. That's a little Canadian Tire kit with metric and standard, all 3/8, nothing crazy. And from there we're going to start with removing the tail housing flange, and that holds, this is a 4x4 model. So we're going to pull it off and get going from there. Poor gun is so unpounded powered, it's not even funny.
Do you want that one because it's smaller?
Yeah. That is beautiful transmission fluid, actually. It makes me very happy. So this guy needs to go somewhere on the floor, wherever. Just simple and easy. This is our tail shaft support. This is our governor. It's a hydraulic governor. It's got a couple of flyweights inside, movable spool valves basically. And as the transmission tail shaft is spinning, it spins these out more and allows more pressure. So your transmission works in two ways. You either have governor pressure, which is speed, how fast you're going, or you have throttle pressure, which is how far you're pushing the gas pedal. If throttle pressure increases above governor pressure, then you will get a downshift. If governor pressure increases above throttle pressure, you'll get an upshift. So if you're driving easy, just getting up to speed, you'll just upshift, and away you go. But if you punch it down, your throttle pressure will kick up higher than your governor pressure, and you will downshift the next gear and go. That's the basics of an automatic, what they do for upshifting and downshifting. That's why it's so important to have your throttle pressure, kick down linkage as it were, all adjusted properly. Get there. I can just go with the other piece. Allow the starter to work. Oh, that's not good. It overflew grab a rag and we'll just soak some of that up.
We just leave it here, or?
Yeah, probably. It'll help. There we are, some gentle prying. So in here you've got one groove, two grooves, and those two grooves line up with a couple of grooves on the shift shaft right there and right under there. That way you're pretty much guaranteed you're going to get it in the right position every time.
Watch your stuff. It's kind of off the floor.
Well, we got a little bit of blackness in there, but no chunks. That makes me happy. This is a vacuum modulator and it helps with the downshifting as well. It reads manifold vacuum, so when you put your foot down, you lose vacuum. When your foot comes out of it, you gain vacuum. And he's bent, so we'll be getting a new one of those. So, here's our valve body. To get the valve body off, there are perimeter screws.
700 millimeter.
Well, we don't have to pull them all off, but we got to pull these 10 millimeter headed, or 3/8. So it might be 3/8. Yeah, 3/8. It's all dependent on what year the damn transmission is. Some of these are different size, so it's always important to note that. Make sure you're putting them in the right spot. There we go. It is loose. Okay, I think next up we're going to pull the band off. Now this is the band. It tightens up and it grabs this drum. That's your forward drum. And it does that, I think, in first gear and possibly reverse. I'd have to actually look up the motion. If this is a Dodge 727, I'd just be able to tell you.
It's a Ford.
It's Ford. But it's simpler than the 727 to rebuild. There's less things.
Yeah. What year is this Ford?
This one might be 1978, 79.
Oh.
There's a little seal on that bolt, so when you tighten up the side of the transmission case, it doesn't just leak fluid out, because fluid will work its way around the threads.
Yeah.
This is your park pawl. And when you move the shifter backwards, okay, that's park. That's park. So that's first gear. Now we're going to probably just leave that assembly in there. Now here's our front pump. It's called the front pump because it's at the front of the transmission. It's literally just the transmission pump. And it is, yep.
I feel like I'm in class right now.
Now to get this out, there's a big O-ring seal here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to need you to grab the, in the hammer drawer,
Mm-hmm.
right at the very front of it,
Yep.
there's a long punch. Because I cheat, you're supposed to use like a puller to draw it out,
Yeah.
but I don't have that puller. So you take a blunted punch.
Let me punch it.
Yeah! That'll work. Alright, front pump, stator support for the torque converter, and input shaft. So this should be our forward drum.
Mm-hmm.
And that's our forward clutches. I'm going to have to research some of the specs to make sure I know I'm talking about the exact same ones.
So you just taking it apart today and then that's it?
Yeah, taking it apart and inspecting everything.
Yeah.
This band actually looks really good. There's next to no wear on it. And these gaps are consistent. It doesn't show up any cracking. So depending if a new one comes in the kit or not, we're probably going to be reusing this one happily. This is our front planetary set. And these are called Torrington bearings. They're designed specifically for transmissions and they have to go in the right spot. And this is a thrust washer.
What do all these little guys here do?
These are clutches.
Oh,
And in between each one there's a steel disc.
so that's what it needs doing, new clutches?
New clutches and plates, yeah. I think. This is one of our planetary gear sets. And on a Chevy, this would be called a sun shell.
Oh.
Planetary gear sets are their own little monsters. A lot of people have a lot of problem understanding them. But they make automatics nice and compact. There's a little bit of wear on that thrust washer, but minimal. That's in good shape. Most of these parts appear to be really nice. Okay, first snap ring I gotta pull it. Where is it? Of course it's buried in the fluid. There it is. That is just a retaining snap ring. So let's pull off the last heavy part. Yeah, snap ring. This would be easier if I had a shop manual. I haven't rebuilt one of these in about 3 years. 2 at least. I did one for Rob.
This is like those little finicky things that just, you know, you forget about.
Yeah, they can be finicky, so I don't really worry about them. These 2 little tubes here are pressed into the transmission. There we go. So this is the gear that the park lever runs against and stops the transmission from moving. When you Okay, this is a outer ring for the rear planetary setup.
Where are your gears?
You're looking at them.
That's what those? That's
Planetary
what
gears, yeah.
They're off
They
on
were
that other
developed
one?
to be compact, essentially, so you can put them all in line, stack gear upon gear. Like a manual transmission has a wide case and it's got shafts with like 2 and 3 sets of gears on them, whereas this doesn't. Now let's see if this fucks off on me. This is our one-way clutch. And now, in the one-way clutch, we have to look at, in here there are these little springs, these kind of accordion style springs. We have to check them to see if any of them are broken. So far they look good, because they take a lot of shock load. Like, when you put it in first gear and just mat it, this gets a shock load. And if they break or compress, then they need to be replaced. And they basically look okay at this point. Okay, so inside the rear clutch pack, you've got your reaction plate. They're always nice and thick. And then you've got clutch discs with clutch material on them, and steels. So steel plates, yep, that's all they are. One clutch rides against the other. It's like in a manual transmission, you've only got one clutch plate, like one clutch disc, and then you've got the steel of the transmission flywheel and the steel of the pressure plate to sandwich the one clutch disc. So that would be basically that right there, those 3 pieces. And the more you stack together, the more clamping load you have, because you're multiplying every time you add another one of these on, you're multiplying the amount of material that will grab. So this is a wavy steel. See, it's got a wave to it, up and down, and that's there just literally to cushion the shifting. So if I can find one, I'm going to replace that with a flat one.
Okay.
Because the more cushion you can take out of an automatic, the faster and crisper it will shift.
You're hitting buttons so quickly.
That's alright.
Yeah.
Where did my littler go? Depending on the transmission, these can have quite a large spring in them, and they can fly out at you.
Oh.
Oh yeah.
So you kind of have to push on it while you're hitting it?
Yeah, something like that, yeah. You want to be careful, that's for sure. So if we were doing a shift kit, this piston, which applies those little levers that I pulled out of the band, and it clamps the band around the drum. If we were doing a shift kit, we would get a much stiffer spring to help it push or thin.
Oh.
Stiffer? Not sure which. But anyway, there is a, this piston is fully in a seal
Mm-hmm.
and gooey.
Yeah.
So we'll clean it up. We might just reuse that. We'll see what's in the kit. I don't even know what's in the kit yet.
I'm still looking at. That's at TCI
Yep.
Automotive.
You betcha. So now essentially the case is cleaned enough, aside from that rear piston.
What kind of tool do you need for that?
For that I have to make a press. So there's no real science to it. Taking apart a clutch pack, you have a snap ring on the outside edge, and we just have to pry the snap ring out. Lift it up on the edge a little bit, and then we can start bringing it out. Boom. And then, reaction plate, and there's no burn marks on it. It looks really good. When clutches are burnt up, you'll see burn marks. The clutch plates themselves will be warped. And it's very important to never mismatch them. You need to keep this stuff. Is it recording?
Yeah.
You need to keep this stuff very organized, because if you put one too many in, or you miscount of how many you're doing, then you will never get the transmission working correctly. Okay, and there we are. So now, that one is going to take my other press. Same thing, snap ring. FYI, automatic transmission parts are extremely well machined and they are sharp.
Okay.
I have ripped myself apart more times than I can count. So again, another clutch pack. That's our rear beveled. For the reaction plate, that's a wavy one. And that's our reaction plate. So you can see the steels are all splined. For the splines out here, they are held in this shell. The clutches are splined for the inside gear that goes in there. So when it's freewheeling, the clutches and the inside gear are turning one way, the steels are turning the other way. When it's applied, everything stops. So now this little guy, there's a piston in there to make this move up and down. I wonder if I can find the right spot. No, I don't have the right. You can apply these. You apply them with compressed air, and it's good to do that so you can make sure that you're getting a good seal. I'll do that on assembly, and that way you test each component as you're going, and you know you got it done right. So this piston has, that's a spacer ring, or a wear ring basically, for that reaction plate to sit onto. It's got an outer lip seal that has to go the right way. If you put one of these lip seals in with the lip facing the wrong way, transmission won't work. So there's a seal on the inside that seals against here, and a seal here, so when the hydraulic pressure goes in, it'll push it firmly, and then when it releases the pressure, it'll suck it back. The spring actually is what pushes it back.
He wasn't wrong about hydraulics. It's
You got it.
yeah.
And there, that's it. This drum is now empty and ready to go. It's one. Alright, so here's our pump. And it's got another thrust washer. And plus it has steel sealing rings. Because there's shafts that spin around this. This supports your torque converter right here. When you slide the torque converter in, this is one of the 3 engagement spots. It engages on the input shaft, and it engages on the stator support, and in here there's a couple of lugs, and it engages on the pump, which this front pump seal has been replaced badly. It's all beat up. Oh, cool. These guys, all you do is squeeze them, and they pop apart. You can't overspread them. They're like piston rings. You can't spread them too wide or else they will break.
Stupid piston ring. Those are the things I struggled with in John's garage that one day.
I think so.
Yeah, it was stupid piston rings.
Pop them apart. And no special tool required, just a little patience. Back half of the pump apart.
Hello.
I wasn't sure if it was gonna stay or if it was gonna fall off.
I was really thinking of saying bye-bye to my fingers there.
And that's it. It's just basically a gear rotor pump. This
Oh,
one
that's
has
weird.
2 striations on the sides of it for the torque converter to engage. So the torque converter with the speed of the engine spins the pump.
That's cool.
Now, you don't, with like any pump, you don't want to mix top to bottom. You do want to keep them organized for mating surfaces. These will mate together. The gears will kind of smooth themselves to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So if you flip it over, you could cause adverse amounts of wear in the pump. And here's your 2 passages, in and out basically. Just cut away, one of them's in, one of them's out, and it pushes fluid. I'm just going to put it back like that. When I clean it, I can already tell you that it's in fantastic shape, but when I clean it, I'll do a more thorough inspection. So there you have it, everybody. That is the basics of stripping apart a Ford C6 transmission. Alright guys, from Dave and Brooke at Days of Glory Shopworks, we really appreciate you following us along on this little build here, and hopefully you get something out of it. And I'm trying to teach Brooke some basics. Whether she ever rebuilds an automatic by herself, who knows?
One day.
But at least she'll have an idea what the shops are talking about if she ever has to take her vehicle to one and I'm not around to do it. Alright, thanks very much. Have a good night.